share screen. Share screen one. Share. Here we are. It went Kim manyata salha atti lubhu or atti lubhuti. So what do you think then, salha, salhas, which means salha and friends? Atti lubhuti, atti lubhu. Is there such a thing as lobha? Evam bhante, evam, the word we all know as meaning thus. It's also a way of saying yes, thus it is. It is thus as you've spoken. Now this abhijatiko ham salha etamattam vadami. I have a lingering doubt in my mind that I had really adequately explained the exact composition of that sentence. Abhijatiko ahang salha etamattam vadami. Is there anybody present who feels that they do not have a very precise grasp of exactly what is being said here and the structure of this? So are you saying that you do have a very precise grasp? Okay, the opposite. So I feel minded. Anyway, I'm kind of glad you've said that because this kind of reinforces the idea that I may not have very adequately explained it last time. So first of all, in the first sentence, the Buddha is asking Salha and his friends, which then expressed in the plural, I mean Salha and the others with you. He's just saying, what do you think? Is there such a thing as lobha? Is there lobha? Meaning, is there such a thing as lobha? Evam bhante, yes. So what he is saying here is etam atam, or okay, so start in English order. Vadami, I am saying etam atam, this meaning, or I am declaring this meaning to be the same as abhijā. So effectively he's saying, yes, we're all agreeing there is such a thing as lobha, but this meaning the idea that is expressed by the word lobha, I say it is, then understand, the same as abhijā. So this meaning, in other words, the meaning conveyed by the word lobha, I say is abhijā. Basically, it's a way of putting it in Pali. I'm saying that the meaning of lobha, what we mean by lobha, is the same as what we mean by the word abhijā. So ludho ko ayam salha abhijhalu. So the ludho, remember this is one of those past participles I was explaining last time, which can mean both the thing done and also the person who has done it. Most past participles of transitive verbs refer to a thing that is done, but some of them also refer to the person who has done it. So we have this this word, the root lub, meaning to cognate with our English word to love, but lub, it means to desire something, generally in a morally pejorative kind of way. That's why it's often translated as greed. So the lubdha, that which is loved or desired, is a descriptive word for a thing that is desired, but it can also be applied to the person who's doing the desiring. There's just a few words like this. So the ludro here meaning the covetous person, the greedy person, the person full of desire. So ludho ko ayam, this ludho, this covetous person, abhijalu. Here, this is just another adjective to describe the luddha, the person who is luddha. Remember the ja from the same root as jhana, abhija, one whose mind is going on to something, somebody who's mentally wanting something. So the abhija is the wanting. Abhijalu, this lu ending, just makes it a person who is characterized by that. So the abhijalu is the covetous person. And panam bihanati, he literally kills pana, literally kills breath, means he takes life. Adinnam bi adiyati, he takes the ungiven. Paradaram bigachati, literally he goes to the wives to others' wives. He's adulterous. Musapi bharnati, and speaks falsehood. Yang sa, which for him, hoti digaratam ahitaya dukhaya, which for him is digaratam, literally a long night, but it's just a way of expressing for a long time, will be to his ahita and to his dukkha, to his detriment and to his grief or sorrow. And the same atidoso, is there such a thing as dosa, evam bhante? And again, etam attam, vadani, I say, etam attam, this meaning the meaning conveyed by dosa, to be bhyapada. Basically, he's equating one with the other, and is stating the same consequences. And then the third of our famous trio, moha, the tankimanyata salha atimoho evam bhante. The same etamattam, this meaning, in other words, the meaning that is conveyed by the word moha, I say, is, quote, avidya. So I say that it's the same as avidya, the same meaning as avidya. So I think you're all perfectly clear about the precise meaning of avidya. Is there anybody who's not totally clear about the precise meaning and construction etymology of avidya? I noticed a slightly quizzical look on Duncan's face before the hand went up. Is the iPad on shared screen okay? Okay, thanks. Oops. Oh, it's from our well-known root vid, which means in Vedic and Sanskrit and Pali, it means has the meaning of to know. But if we go a little further back into Indo-European, it's the to know and to see. So in the most ancient known forms of the Indo-European languages, this root conveyed both notions. as we sometimes you use in English. Do you see it? Doesn't mean you physically see it. It means have you got it? Oh yes, I see. I understand. I know now. So we kind of use it in English. Um, in fact, we explicitly use both meanings in English because vid is from the it becomes in Latin videre, to see, from which we get our English word vision. And in fact, the video is just the Latin verb meaning I see, video. So that's explicitly the seeing with the eyes, and it's the same word that comes into English as wit, German wissen, to know, and wit in the sense of keep your wits about you and you do something unwittingly, unknowingly. Oops. It makes its verbal noun in Sanskrit vidya, so it's vid plus verbal noun ending ya, vidya, which means knowledge, and avidya just means non-knowledge, therefore ignorance, avidya. And in Pali, as normal, the dya becomes a double ja. So the avidya Sanskrit avidya in Pali. So here, moha is being equated with avidya. Moha is the word that's commonly translated as delusion, and avidya is commonly translated as ignorance. But here they are being equated. So we use the same formula here. Avijatiko aham sarlha etamattam vadami. So etamattam, this meaning, in other words, the meaning conveyed by the word moha, vadami, I say, to be the same as avijja. Now the mudho, the way that's the past participle of the root muh. So we have the root muh, to be deluded. Then with the strengthening of the u, as the guna of the u, we have moha. Moha, same in Sanskrit and Pali. And we make the past participle. We want to have muh plus ta. Now, Sanskrit does not allow muhta. So what happens is that, oh, sorry, the h plus the t merge into a dh, mudha, and the u lengthens. So it's slightly irregular. So muhta just becomes mudha. And you find that with other roots ending in a h, where you make the past participle with ta, they merge into a dh. Simon.
Just a question about vidya. As a verbal noun, it presumably retains something of action in it. So it's knowledge of something. Somebody is doing something to know. Does that carry through with the in front of it, such that is it just negating it so the person doesn't know? Because there is this big debate, isn't it, about avidya, as to whether it's an active turning away from, or whether it's simply the privative, one does not know, nescience, as opposed to active, being ignorant.
Yeah, I take that point. I've always looked at it, and I think it's probably right here. Is just being ignorant. It's not as I do not interpret it as an active turning away from knowledge. It's just ignorance, nescience, ignorance, being in a state of not knowing. And in fact, it's applied to the ordinary unenlightened state of moha, the ordinary unenlightened state of being deluded.
I think even delusion though has got some kind of active component, isn't it? It's like as if um, you're kind of doing something that's wrong as opposed to simply not knowing. You're not passively um, wrong about the world. You're engaging with the world in a kind of stupid way.
Okay, now I do take that point, yeah, because in English, when we talk about somebody being delusional, that tends to suggest a deliberate refusal to face facts. But I think that that's probably just something that has come to mean in modern English usage. I I doubt that it has the meaning of deliberate refusal to face facts here because it's the normal human condition.
Yeah, yeah.
You are kind of misled, deluded. You are misled, not seeing things as they really are. Um, So, I mean, we can all think more about this, but I tend to say no. I do not perceive here a deliberate turning away from facts. I think that this is just a pejorative term as it's come to be used in modern English. If we say to somebody, if about somebody who's simply ignorant, you might be ignorant of the facts, may not be his fault. I mean, everyone may be ignorant of the facts, but if you say that somebody is delusional, then you're criticizing his cognitive abilities, the way it's come to be used in modern English. If he's deliberately not looking at the evidence, deliberately closing his eyes to what is plain to see, that's my interpretation of it.
I mean, I think the both terms, both vidya and moha, kind of straddle that divide along with delusional in the sense that you can say that, okay, normally we would say, in a court of law, if somebody was ignorant of the law, it just means they haven't heard of that particular law, that it's not their fault. But you can also say somebody, don't be ignorant, as in, it's a behavioral thing. Somebody's doing something wrong.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's probably just a universal human characteristic, isn't it? That we have to do something, and if we're seeing the world wrongly, or if we don't know, then we're just blundering along, and that may straddle both Pali and English.
I'm sorry, say that last bit again. I didn't fully catch.
But that distinction, the dual meaning of both not knowing, which is,
Mm.
and also actively blundering into wrongness, is probably universal, a universal aspect of what it is to think. And so it's both in the Pali and in the English. It's inescapably so.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly take that point. In English, we can use. I think we say if somebody is ignorant, it can be used just he happens not to know, or don't be ignorant, be behaving in a stupid, rude manner, ignorant in that sense. That's just how it's come to be used in modern colloquial English. I don't think there's a pejorative sense. I didn't see that pejorative sense here. It's just, it is the common normal state of unenlightened beings. I mean, it is like to use a Christian kind of analogy, just as we have original sin, there's a kind of original ignorance in the human condition. There is moha,
Yeah.
and the only element of culpability then would be where a person has had the opportunity to dispel it, but has deliberately rejected it. But here, I would say these are simply factual terms to describe how the human condition is.
No, that's good. I was thinking if the avidya, it was more than merely privative, and it was actually saying a person was actively ignorant, then it would settle it grammatically, wouldn't it? But it doesn't. So that's leave the
Yeah,
question open. Yeah, that's good.
yeah. I think yes. I mean, I would tend to agree with that. So we have the mudha then is simply the adjective. It's in form, it's a past participle, but it's the adjective to describe the person in a state of moha, just as the person in a state of lobha is luddha, and the person in a state of abhijja is the abhijalu, and the person in a
Sorry, for the point from Simon, I'm not sure if there is a. I don't think delusion cuts it, because delusion is a notion of something with a wrong point of view. But here, the person thinks whatever his point of view is the correct point of view. So I guess it's one is a blissful ignorance, another is a willful ignorance, I suppose. Yeah. So I don't think there is a special term. Both fall under the category of ignorance. In any language, English and Pali, I think both the same conceptually. I think.
yeah, that's right. I mean, for example, the asmimana, which is the idea that my body, my desires, my thoughts are me, and that's a real me. This is a form of avijja, and most of us go around with that thought in our minds, and by the practice we do, we seek to enlighten our minds out of that. But when we are in this normal run of it, we're simply being ignorant and sense of not knowing the truth, unable to see the true facts. We're deluded by the sense of I and into thinking it's real and getting angry and upset and all the other things that happen when you can place your center in the asmimana, the I conceit, literally.
Right.
So the rest of this paragraph then is follows the same formula. Avijatiko ahang sarha etamattam vadami mulhoko ayang salha avijagato. So avijagato, this gata here, meaning literally gone. It's the past participle of the root gam, to go. It's ignorance gone, therefore in a state of avidya. And this gata can be attached to a number of words meaning in a state of or gone to. One of the epithets of the Buddha is sugata, sugato, which can be crudely translated as well gone, gone into a place where characterized by su, gone to a good place. And you have tathagata as well, either gone to suchness or thus gone. There's some discussion about exactly what it means, but it's that same gata. So avijagata seems perfectly clear. Ignorance gone, meaning existing in a state of avijja. And then there's a repeat here of the various acts that the avijagata does. Simon.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite broad, isn't it? Because sometimes it just means in the state of, as Agata. But sometimes it isn't there some passage about where the monk is something like Rukamula Gata. So he's literally gone to the root of a tree.
Oh, yes, certainly. I mean, Rukamula Gata is where that's used in the literal sense. Yeah, as you rightly say, tree root gone means he's actually physically gone, placed himself at the root of the tree, and there he sits.
So we use the same, don't we? In the sense we would say somebody's gone mad, but they haven't actually gone anywhere. They're still there, but they're in the state of madness.
Yeah, I mean, actually that's an interesting point there. So we have the Pali Sanskrit verb gum being used in that sense, rather like the English word go. He's gone funny. He's gone mad, and you can be woe begone, gone into so dukkha gata, gone into a state of woe. So yes, it has both the literal meaning, physically gone somewhere, and then kind of mentally, or just his entire condition is in that state. So if you are avijagata, you haven't physically gone anywhere, but your mind has placed itself in a state of avijja, or is in a state of avijja. So, and then the same list of things. Panam pihanati adinambi adiyati pardarampi gacchati musapi bharnati. Yang sahoti digaratam ahitaya dukkhayati. Um, this phrase, assa, or to him, young assa, we discussed last time, abbreviated to youngsa, which um, to him or for him is to his detriment, and to dukkha. This is a use of the dative form, meaning that something inures to or operates to his detriment, which for him will be to detriment and to dukkha. I mean, it operates to bring that about. The remaining, so were any further queries arising out of what we've just done, that little bit? We'll pass on to the next bit now. Let's just expand this a bit on the screen. So, evam bhante, yes, bhante, to what's just been said. Tan kim manyata salha. So, what do you think then, salha? Ime dhamma kusalava, akusalava. Here we have the use of dhamma, plural of dhamma, just to mean these basically things. It's a rather broad use of the word dhamma here. So these things that I have discussed, and here we've been talking about lobha, dosa, and moha. These are also dhammas, these phenomena, these things. Are they kusala or akusala? This word kusala, in Sanskrit it's kushala. Etymology is uncertain. We know pretty much what it means. It's the word that we typically translate as skillful. In other words, good in a skillful sense, in the sense of being conducive to the goal of our Buddhist practice. Is it conducive to enlightenment? Is it conducive to the holy life? If so, it is kusala. There has been a theory expressed. Some of you may have heard of kusha grass. Ram, I'm sure you've heard of kusha grass, have you?
No.
It's, let me just, it's in Sanskrit, kusha. It's a type of grass which typically, and by legend, Buddhas and saints have made their seats of kusha grass.
Uh-huh.
It's a particular, like almost like there's the holy trees they sit under, and the kusha grass that they sit on, and it's a kind of a bit sharp pointed at one end, but it's come to be regarded as an auspicious kind of grass. Therefore, the theory has been advanced that the kushala in Sanskrit, because it has the auspicious sense of this kind of grass, but I don't think it's seriously accepted by scholars. And if we discount that theory, then I think we just have to accept that the etymology of the word kushala or kusala in Pali is uncertain. Also, it's used for somebody who's living a life of extreme asceticism. So he will eat only the amount of food that can be placed on the tip of a blade of kusha grass. And since it's got a long pointy tip, you can't fit very much food on it. So that was a way of explaining. He can eat the cook a kusha grass meal. In other words, the food that could be placed on the tip of kusha grass. But I would say I just offer that as an example of amusing folk etymology that I don't think there's academically we need to take seriously. But, Simon.
Is the kusa grass, is that also the grass that the Buddha talks about if you grasp it wrongly? So it's got sharp edges and you can either hold it, or if you grab it by the edges, it can cut you. There's another type of the Buddha talks about.
Yes, I was just thinking in parallel, Simon, about this etymology. I was very curious about it, and it went on to say kusha, but as well it was explaining. Gemini was explaining kusha grass. The reason why is that someone who is cutting the grass, he needs a great level of skill. That's why the person who's without cutting himself. That's why the person who's cutting the grass is a kushala. It's coming from kush grass, yeah. That's
that's interesting. Yeah, so if he's good at cutting this kusha grass, and he's able to cut it without hurting himself,
yes.
You need a high degree of skill to be able to do that.
Yes.
Okay, so that's interesting.
And you said that's the one that is used for as a sitting mat to meditate and stuff during Buddha time. So who knows? From there, the word cushion came. I guess I don't know.
Kusha. I hadn't thought of that. That's a nice one. I'll see whether I can. Almost too good to be true, but I will. I'll check it anyway as we go. Let me just make a note of that. I hadn't spotted that one, Ram, but a nice one. It's the kind of thing we would like to be true, but I doubt whether we can. Anyway, we'll see. We'll see what emerges from the etymology of it. So, Pankimanyata Salaha, ime dhamma, these things, are they kusala or akusala? So, akusala bhante. Savajava anavajava. This word avajja it's from the root vad, meaning to say, and literally vadya means sayable, that which can be said. But we almost always find it. I don't recall having found it just vajja. I always find it's as far as I know, it's always found in the negated form, so avajja. Literally unsayable, or we have the English word unspeakable. Now, the English word unspeakable means so horrible you don't even want to talk about it. And so avadya, unspeakable, has simply come to mean blameworthy. So as an adjective. So so it's both an adjective, unspeakable and blameworthy, and also as a noun, it means a fault, something that is to be blamed. So an unspeakable thing, or as an adjective, unspeakable, blameworthy. So these, if something then is with fault, it's blameworthy, it's sa avajja, with fault, possessing a fault, faulty, wrong, and the sa avajja by Sandhi becomes savajja. And but negated, it is the avajja, therefore an anavajja. So are they savajja, blameworthy, or anavajja, blameless? This prefix sa, meaning with, you often find it prefix to a noun to make an adjective, meaning possessing something. So, for example, blame is a noun, but blameworthy, it would be so, or blame something, or full. If you're fearful, something is blameworthy. There are various ways of making these adjectives out of nouns. This prefix sa has that same force here. It just means with. It's with blame, meaning blameworthy. And vinyugrahitava, vinyupasattava. So vinyu, Simon, please.
So yeah, just looking at avajja in the PED, the electronic version, it says seemingly avadya, but in reality derived from ava. So like something you would speak down to, you would tell somebody off for.
Okay, that presupposes then a suffix dia.
Yeah, it says Sanskrit avadya, seemingly a plus vadya, but
Yeah.
in reality derived from ava.
How interesting. I had always, up to this moment, assumed that it was from the root vad. You have just shaken my confidence. I'm just this, and we can't pretend that the great Monia Williams got everything right. I mean, there has been further research done since then, but look, this is Monia Williams' Sanskrit dictionary. Where he parses it as avadya, anything blamable, or as a noun, you see. It's both an adjective and noun. Anything blamable, or a want in the sense of a defect, imperfection. But you see here, he's taking it from avadya, sorry, avadya, not avadya. Let me just
check out the PED. It's the same version you've got.
Yeah, I'm just going to look up get the PED now. I'm calling it up. You look it up on the Avadja. Who's seemingly a plus vadya, but in reality derived from ava. Okay, ava meaning down or off. if it is in reality derived from ava, then this presupposes a suffix dia, ava dia, which again I'll look it up, but I don't think I've ever seen that suffix. I'm not sure it is a suffix. Now, let me do some further research on this. But the thing was, avarja, from vrij, meaning to turn something away, to shun. It's avarja, not to be shunned, but that's the exact opposite.
Well, it says that according to Childers or Childers, so that may
Childers,
be
yeah.
a random one.
Yeah.
Justified by Dhammapada 318, 319.
Yeah.
The commentator says avavad.
So even the commentator then didn't think it was from ava, but from avavad, which is okay. So avavad, to literally to talk down. Since there's apa also sometimes it overlaps in meaning with ava. So apavadati, avavadyati, and okay. That is kind of that is acceptable. But the avarja means the opposite of avarja. Avarja, not to be shunned, therefore acceptable, which is the exact opposite of in meaning here. Let me just dig. I'll dig a little bit more into this, and come back to you on it.
Because the other one for talking down to, which you get in it's in the Karaniya Metta Sutta, is upavadeya, isn't it? Would reprove, would tell off.
That's right. Yes. Yeah.
So whether ava would mean something slightly different, or is it not?
It would, and also, as we know, this ava, the Sanskrit ava, very often turns up in Pali as an o. It's softened into o. So, for example, crosses down, ava in Sanskrit, avatarati, and the verbal noun is avatara, and that's a word that's come into English as avatar. And it's a being that crosses down from another supramundane realm into the human realm. So that's how we have even in modern English now the avatar. But the verb, Sanskrit verb avatarati, to cross down, also means to descend into water. That's the verb that's normally used for getting into water. It becomes uttarati in Pali, just as avakasha in Sanskrit becomes okasa in Pali. The okasa meaning ordinary meaning is opportunity, but as an exclamation, it means letting the light shine down, keeping out of the way, giving the opportunity for another influence to come in. And it's sometimes used as a kind of, I know in some practices, particularly I think Thailand and Cambodia, and indeed particular Boonman practices also done by Paul Dennison, who say just the invocation Okasa, which literally means down shining, let the light shine down. The idea is we get out of the way to allow the light to shine down. But in ordinary speech, it just means the opportunity. And we often see in the suttas that somebody begs for the okasa, the opportunity to speak, just to be allowed to speak. May you give me the okasa, please, to address you. So back to avavad. Let's say I'll do a bit more research on it. Remember also the avavad, to talk down to a plane. We have an opposite of abhivad. Buddhang bhagavantam abhivademi. You can up talk. In other words, offer praise. Not in the invocation arahang samma sambuddho buddhang bhagavantam abhivademi. So that's the same. That's the class 10 verb. So vadati becomes vadeti, in Sanskrit vadayati. Here it has essentially the same meaning, but it's the opposite of avavadati or apavadati, abhivadati. Incidentally, the word ovada or avavada or ovada, they're just saying we have avatarati, utarati. The avavada in the form ovada in Pali, on the face of it, it looks as if it means talking down to, but it just means giving advice as from a senior to a junior. We have the Rahulovada Sutta, the Rahula Ovada Sutta. That's the sutta where the Buddha is giving advice to his son on the following of the path. So that's not in a pejorative sense. It's not in the sense of a blaming or a telling off. It's simply advice being given from the older, the senior, the wiser to the junior. Okay, so thank you for throwing the spanner in the works there, Simon. I've clearly got a little bit more research to do about this. Vinyu. This form doesn't exist in Sanskrit. It's vidnya in Sanskrit. In Pali, you have the same, essentially the same word, but ending in either a long or a short u. You have vinyu and vinyu. Both exist in Pali. So it just means one who has knowledge, or in particular one who has here a bit of insight, is vijnana. So the vinyu is possessed of vijnana. The root gar in Sanskrit, garhati in Sanskrit, Pali inserts an garahati, just means to blame or to censure somebody. Past participle garahita. So this is vinyu garahita, literally wise blamed, meaning blamed or censured by the wise. So this is what is known as a third case compound, meaning the relationship between the two elements of the compound, vinyu and garahita, is one of instrumental. It means garahita vinyuhi, by the wise. And again, shangsati, to praise. It makes the past participle shasta in Sanskrit and satta in Pali. So satta, one of those ambiguous Pali words, because it can be the past participle of shas, meaning to cut, or shanks, meaning to blame, or shas, meaning to teach. They will become satta in Pali. So there's a potential linguistic ambiguity there. Because in context, it's not ambiguity, because satta or pasatta is the exact opposite of garahita. So are these, the there is, it's because it's an adjective and it's ime dhamma, masculine plural. These things, are these things kusala or akusala? It's just a masculine plural ending, nominative, to agree with dhamma. And this garahitava, vinyupasattava, it's just the nominative masculine plural ending. So, yes, Simon, before we move on.
Just a really wild thought about pasatta. Satta is also a caravan, isn't it? And it means sa'atta, like that which goes with a purpose. And I'm wondering whether it could be related to the idea of pa, like forth with a purpose. So instead of praised, it's that which is kind of expeditious.
So what was that last word you said? It came out a bit blurred.
Sort of expeditious.
Oh, expeditious, yes. Ingenious. I'm not going to say it's impossible. I hadn't seen it in that way. I suppose you could argue for it. One thing against it is just the pure context, because first of all, you've got the prefix pa, the Sanskrit pra, which I don't think you could find that with the word sapa, meaning a caravan. It's a verbal prefix, which you would tend not to find with a noun.
I'm thinking more not that it's a caravan, but if you break down what a caravan is, it's sa'atta. So it's with a purpose.
Yes.
This is when some, pasatta could be that which is put forth with a purpose, which is similar to praise, but got a kind of a different meaning.
That is an entertaining notion. I would need a little bit more persuasion before accepting it. I wouldn't like to knock it on the head because it's actually quite ingenious. But in fact, seriously, you do find many things that seem to be, academically speaking, slightly over ingenious in interpretations. But they may be ideas that could be in the minds of the original speakers. So although the academic might say, well, no, this is incorrect, nevertheless, as the language was subjectively understood by native speakers, that idea could have been there, and is therefore a valid field for our investigation. Very much like the kushala that Ram has just mentioned. But even though it may not be an academically sustainable argument on the basis of strict historical linguistics, nevertheless, it might be a valid thing for us to know because that it may have had that meaning or that resonance in the minds of the native speakers. And if that is right, then it is a legitimate area for us to be acknowledging and taking in.
I remember when we did the Dhammapada, there was a verse where there was a rich merchant, Mahadana, who was crossing the desert, terrified because he was apasatta. And we said that could be because he's got a small caravan.
Oh, yes. Apasata.
Yeah.
Ilpa would be alpasarta in Sanskrit. Only a small caravan, therefore, easily attacked by a band of brigands.
And secondly, apasatta lightly armed. He hasn't got a huge sword to defend himself.
Yes, okay, also correct. Yes.
Thirdly, apasata in the sense of having little lore, Lore. He's like a tyro caravaneer, and he doesn't really understand what he's doing. He doesn't understand the caravan teaching, so he's vulnerable to attack.
Do you know, this is one of the lovely things. It can be rather difficult to cope with the ambiguities of Pali, but also it can lead to almost these puns, where you have all meanings are capable of being present at the same time. Something that wouldn't work in Sanskrit because the Sanskrit would differentiate between these words, but would work in Pali. When we were doing that verse in class, Simon, did you raise these other alternative? I can't remember whether you did.
Yeah, I think you said that you favoured the small caravan one, but linguistically there was nothing to stop the others being the case. I think you said pretty much the same.
I'm relieved that I did, Simon. Thank you. um, okay, what we're doing, we're just on a 8 o'clock now, so we'll have our 15-minute break. And I will see you back here in at 8:15 UK time. Okay, see you then.
Please
Thanks.
stop the recording.
Stop the recording. Thank you. Thank you
Okay.
very much. So pause, start anyway. Here we go. So if it's okay with everyone, I'll just take any queries arising out of the passage we've just done, make a start on the next one, reading 3, and then go on to do some grammar.
James, could I just ask you,
Yes,
Duncan?
please, Duncan.
You mentioned there was VINN, Vin, and then you mentioned Vijnana. You linked it to Vijnana.
Yes, I did.
Could you just explain? So Vijnana's consciousness, yeah?
Yeah, it's I'll explain it from point of view roots and language, and then the meaning. Um, Here we are. So is my iPad properly displayed? Okay, thanks. So we have the root nya, meaning to know, and as I've explained more than once, cognate with the German kennen and our word to know. We don't pronounce the K, but we write it. Cognate with the Greek gnosis, as in prognosis, and also the Latin gnoscere, as in cognoscere and cognition. They all come from that same root. Where you have a root ending in a long R, oops, pen's going funny again. Where you have a root ending in a long R, and it comes to form the final member of a compound, the long R is shortened to A. Let me give you an example. We have the root da, meaning to give. And we've got, let's take the word, a giver of gifts. So dana, giving or gift. So a giver of gifts is a danada. Full form of the root da, but when it now forms the last member of a compound being here a compound that makes an adjective or a noun, then it shortens to an a. So gna, to know, I'm looking at the Sanskrit word now. Dana, by the way, would be identical in Sanskrit and Pali. If we look at the word, the Sanskrit for omniscient, all-knowing, we've got the root jna with the long a, and it makes sarvajna, all-knowing. Not sarvajna, but sarvajna. It now becomes an ordinary akaranta shabda, noun or adjective ending in a short a. This happens with all roots that end in a long a. So let's now add the prefix vi onto the root jna. So a verb, vidnya. So this is the separative prefix vi. So vidnya, just ordinary jna means to know. Vidnya is the idea of knowing into something. Therefore, not just a superficial knowledge of it, but either insight into it or being conscious of it. Sometimes it's been interpreted as a split knowing. You don't just know it, you're conscious of it. You know that you know. Now, you can make an adjective out of it, but we're now making a compound word, vidnya. What's happened with the adjective vidnya is that the jna now is treated as forming the second member of this compound, and as with all other roots ending in a long a, the a shortens when it finds itself as the final member of a compound which is a noun or adjective. Therefore, vidnya means somebody who knows into something, and therefore it has the meaning of wise. The meaning of the Buddhist psychological meaning of consciousness is a slightly different story, which I'll come to in a moment. So vidnya just means wise. You also have prajna. You have the verb prajna, meaning to know into something, to see wisely. And that gives us the noun actually, prajna. But it makes the adjective prajna. So vidnya and prajna have broadly the same kind of meaning, but because they are now adjectives, of which the final member is this root with a long a, it becomes a short a. There's more than one way of forming a verbal noun. So from our root jna, we have the word jnana, just meaning knowing, therefore knowledge. Just as we have dana. So vijnana in Sanskrit, vijnana in Pali, is just a pure verbal noun from the verb vidnya, in exactly the same way, for example, as the root da, to give, makes dana. There are several ways of forming verbal nouns from roots in Sanskrit and Pali, just as there are in Latin and English. Adding na to the root is just one. So that means that vijnana, or vijnana in Pali, is a verbal noun, but the corresponding adjective is just vidnya, which in Pali becomes vinyu. You would have expected to see vinya in Pali, but it's just a feature of Pali that when the last member is the root jna, it becomes new. It's just an oddity of Pali that happens. So vinyu just means wise, knowing into something.
Sorry, one silly point on that. The extending on the words having nya as the root. If you see, there's another one I think called agnya, and I thought putting something in front makes it a negation.
You're talking about there's an anya kundanya, for example.
Agnya is an
Yeah.
order or authority or things like this. It's a
Okay.
common word that's used. It's not just but it's I was like it's a long syllable
Okay, this is where Pali can create an ambiguity simply because of the phonetics of Pali. In Sanskrit, there's jna to know. Ajna suggests a kind of the basically means towards. However, it gives an idea. That's the long as a prefix. This long as a prefix. It's got its primary function is to mean towards.
Towards. Okay.
However, in verbs of motion, it reverses the motion. Gum to go, agum to come. Go come.
Okay.
Da to give, ada to take. But mostly the prefix a means motion towards in a literal sense, or it adds a sense of dynamism, to motion and dynamism to the word. Now, I'm glad you mentioned this one, Ram, because this jna just means to know something. But ajna, but he's got it. So you got it. Not just you know it, but whoosh, a movement of the mind finally grasped. That's the ajna. So that's the verb. You can make a noun in Sanskrit, ajna. There's the idea of not just the idea of getting it. Got it. Because of the phonetics of Pali, Pali does not like a long vowel before a doubled consonant, so it's shortened to a, which misleadingly, superficially makes it look like the negating a. In fact, it derives from the Sanskrit long ajna. So when the Buddha called him Anyasi Kondanyo, and then that's why he came to be known as Anya Kondanya. The Kondanya who, on the surface, it could look like ignorant Kondanya, but in fact, in Sanskrit, it would be Ajna Kondanya, Kondanya who got it. So this is just an example of how the phonetics of Pali can appear to create an ambiguity. Another use, or another example, I should say, of this dynamic form of is we have from the root nand, meaning joy. Now we have nanda on its own means joy, right? Joy. Now, if you put this Ananda, our well-known name Ananda, in front of it, this conveys the meaning of joy, but in a dynamic sense. Either you give joy to people, not just feeling joyful in yourself, but you bring joy or give joy. It adds a dynamic sense to it. So the Ananda. I have, on several occasions, this now brings us to the difference in the Ananda and Ananda. I've on several occasions had to caution people against saying Ananda. So my pen's going funny again. So Ananda with the long An, like the bringer of joy, the giver of joy, who radiates joy. If you shorten that A to Ananda, that means joyless. So it's the exact, so that is the negating a there. So this shows you how you ought to be very careful whether it's a or a. And as we've just seen with anya, it can create an ambiguity in Pali simply because the phonetics of Pali shortens it. So has this explained it to your satisfaction, Ram?
Perfectly. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm glad to hear it. So, oops. Were there any more comments or queries arising out of the... Oh, I was going to talk about Vijnana, wasn't I? So, Vijnana, so it's Vijna and the verbal noun ending now. So Vijnana in Sanskrit. And Vijnana in Pali. That, as far as I can detect, originally in Sanskrit, the Vijnana often had the same kind of meaning as prajna, meaning wisdom, just not just knowing the surface, but knowing into something, having a little bit of wisdom rather than superficial knowledge. But then in Buddhist psychology, it developed a specialized meaning. You know, in the five aggregates, the last of the five is vijnana, and in that context, it's generally described as consciousness. So it could be treated as with the separative prefix vi, as a kind of split knowing. So knowing that you know, I mean, an animal might know something. In fact, we know animals can learn, they can know things, but the vijnana is kind of the consciousness of knowing that you know, stepping back and seeing what's going on in your own mind. So it's like a knowing that you know, a split consciousness, the knowing of knowing, two knowings going on at the same time. And that actually is somewhat reflected in the Latin, well, in English consciousness via Latin. It's from the Latin verb scire, meaning to know, but conscire, a with knowing, a knowing alongside another knowing. In other words, knowing that you know. So conscire and conscious, give us conscious in modern English, and the vijnana had the same kind of idea of a split knowing, a knowing that you know. To conscious, diagnose. Yeah, there was something actually interesting point. I think it's valid here to bring it up that we were discussing in fact, in my meditation group this very morning. This prefix vi, we all know roughly the prefix vi, the idea of separation, vigata, gone away, vijnana, the split knowing. Have I explained this to this group before? Maybe I haven't. Vipassana is another one, seeing into something. So originally, in Proto-Indo-European, we have the word variously dvi and dva, meaning two, as in the number two. if you grasp this, this will actually give you quite a lot of insight into the meaning of some of these words. So originally, the dvi udwa meant two, and that's the same word that survives in modern English, where we TWO. It came to be used then. Originally, its use was as a number, the number two. But it also came to be used as a prefix. And the idea of that prefix was that a unity being split into two things. Now, what happened was, when this word dvi came to be used as a prefix in Sanskrit and Vedic, it dropped the D and so it became vi. So wherever we see a Sanskrit or Pali word with the prefix vi, remember that originally that came from dvi, meaning two, splitting something in two. When it came into Latin, it dropped the v, and so it just became d. So whenever and equally, it had other forms in Latin. So whenever we see we have so many numerous words in English, we can just go on inventing them as we go along. If you debug a computer or debug a program, you remove the bugs from it. You defenestrate somebody, you throw him out of the window. I mean, there are to deflate, the opposite of inflate, the idea of negation, taking away, separation. Quite a wide range of meanings. But whenever you see the vi in Sanskrit and Pali, you very, very often there will be an English word, either via Latin or more recently invented, which will begin with di or dis. For example, to progress, literally gressus meaning a step. To progress means to step forward, progress. If you digress, means you are stepping away, means you're going off topic. I digress means I'm going off topic, stepping away. Once you get used to the idea that both of these, the prefix vi and the d, di, and dis into English via Latin, essentially mean the idea of splitting into, undoing, removing, negating, basically a separation, then you'll have much more feeling of the force of that prefix vi. It doesn't always mean separation as such. Take, for example, the word that we all know, vipassana. Vipassana, which is generally translated as insight, and vipassana meditation, specifically insight meditation. It's from a root pash, mostly that it's not used in the past tense, it's used in the present. It's the root. In fact, there's the root drishta, adrasha, saw, see it, but in the present tense, you use a different form of a different root. So pashyati in Pali, passati. So anyway, this root does exist, pash. And now you can make a verbal noun, pashyana. So vipashyana in Sanskrit, which is what becomes vipassana by regular phonetic mutation in Pali, it means insight. But why does it mean insight? The idea is there's a splitting. What have you split? You've separated the surface, like you've parted the veil. So the vipassana, the insight, is you've opened up split open the surface and you're seeing into something. So that's how vipassana, with this positive connotation of seeing behind the surface, seeing into something. Now, even more entertainingly, from the etymological point of view, this root pash, in an earlier form of Vedic, the root had an S in it. It was spash. Okay? Now, I'm sure you've all heard me say more than once that very frequently, when you get the sound a sh in Vedic and Sanskrit, it will often turn up as a k sound in Latin and Greek. Are you with me so far? Spash. Now look, the Latin root. Spec. Spectacles. Inspect. Respect. Retrospect. So the spec and spect, in Latin meaning looking, comes from the old root spash, which has come into Pali as pas. So we're now going to invent a new word in English. So vipassana becomes dispection. Okay, the word doesn't exist in English, I acknowledge that, but it does now. It does now. Dispection, meaning looking into something. Vipassana, the insight. For example, when in a mortuary, say the forensic surgeon dissects the body, it doesn't mean chop it to bits. He's kind of cutting it open to see inside, not a random cutting, but a careful cutting. And that's the dissection. But our new word, the dispection or dispection, means that you're actually looking into something. So that is why our new word, dispection, is directly cognate with the Sanskrit vipassana and the Pali vipassana. Simon, please.
I've seen lots of discussions about vijnana and what it means. And if we say, okay, it's got this kind of separative sense in the V, the three positions that people normally take in the English-speaking world are either the example that you gave, which is that it's both knowing and knowing that you're knowing, which is a form of knowing. Secondly, there's knowing one thing from another, the ability to pick something out from a background that's kind of amorphous, so that vijnana is simply knowing objects as opposed to a background awareness, knowing one thing from another. And the other one that's put forward is a type of knowing that separates the subject, the knowing subject, from the known object. Is there anything in the grammar that can help us to sort out which of these three it is?
I don't think there is, and I would not be at all surprised. I can't state it as a positive fact, but I would not be at all surprised if, as the language developed, and right from Vedic times, as the language developed, all of these meanings could have attached to it. So vijnana, if you see these amorphous shapes in the distance, you don't know what they are, and then gradually, as you get closer and they become clearer, you can separate one thing, even you know what each thing is separately. So from the pure linguistic analysis of the word, it can certainly have that meaning. In fact, in the Pali Suttas, vijnana is not, as far as I know, ever used in that sense. It's used more in the sense of either the knowing that you know, or a more perceptive, wise knowing. In fact, the word that's used in the Pali Suttas for distinguishing things, distinguishing one thing from another, is actually viveka.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
Mm.
There's even a bit in, I don't know if you know the Sue Hamilton book, which is basically her PhD thesis on the khandhas, where quite mischievously she says that one of the meanings of vijnana is almost literally that which moves from life to life and is conscious, which is directly against the kind of sati and it's a massive heresy, isn't it? But that's how it's used in one context.
So I noticed that you did, and I suspect quite advisedly, use the word mischievously
Yes, I mean,
to,
but
to kind of throw this in. I haven't actually heard that theory before, and if we dare to use the word heretical in a Buddhist context, this is almost a heretical view, isn't it?
I mean, but it's in there. You know, she gives chapter and verse about
Oh.
vijnana. It's that which is um, almost literally compared to the other reading we were doing, that which steps over from one existence to another.
If you're able to send me the reference to it, I'll see. I'd be interested to read it.
I'll dig it out for you. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. That would be interested. So shall we?
James,
So
could I just say thanks? I mean, it's amazing how you get these very difficult abstract concepts, and by looking at the going back to the Pali and the grammar and the etymology, just how much insight you can gain. It's just fascinating. So thank you.
well, I'm very glad that it's fallen in your heart in this way, Duncan. I find it really kind of brings the language to life, and it's not just a string of noises that we learn and we're told it means that in modern English. We actually trace it right back, and we feel that the language that we are speaking now is a direct descendant of Sanskrit, and not a direct descendant of Sanskrit, but they're both descendants of an earlier form of the language, and it does give it its life and force.
I mean, Vijnana, this sort of insight into knowing, reflection, reflectiveness. It's fascinating. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, another one. We all know what a vihara is. You know, the vihara is the word for a monastery. Um, in fact, in modern Hindi, it's come to be Bihar, and that's the name of Bihar state. You know, one of the states of the Hindi-speaking state of northern India, because it was the state with all the monasteries in it. It's actually from the root hri, meaning to take. So it makes a verbal noun hara. So hara just meaning taking. So vihara. Why did vihara come to mean a monastery? Because it's your private place where you take yourself away from the busy bustle of life. You take yourself away from the marketplace, away from busy human life. It's as well a place of quiet retreat, the vihara, the taking away. You take yourself out of the busy public life into your quiet space. So that's what lies behind this vihara, which then just translated as monastery, but it's your quiet, secluded space. Incidentally, and then this leads us back to the prefix a that we were discussing. You have ahara, by the way, is do you use the word in Tamil at all, the ahara, meaning food?
Food, yeah, yeah.
Food, right. Okay. And they're used in Thai as well. They pronounce it ahan in Thai, but it's the same word. So the ahara is that which you take into yourself.
Yeah.
So that's the meaning of the word. And also there is, I forget which, it's in, was it one of the Abhidhamma Suttas? And one that I was looking at recently, I can't remember what it was now. But the ahara, the impressions that you receive, the things you listen to, the things you watch, the things you read, is all a kind of ahara. These are things that you are taking into yourself. So just as you can take wholesome, nourishing food, equally you can take, and you can have rotten food. Equally, the impressions that you choose to take into yourself, what you read, what you watch, the people you listen to, can be kind of it's all ahara, things you take into yourself, for good or for ill. So just like food, it is a kind of food for the soul, food for the mind, the ahara. But ramen is just used as a regular word, just ordinary food in Tamil, is it?
Yes, fairly commonly used, yes.
Okay, right. So that now gives you the relationship between vihara and ahara. Ahara, taking yourself away. Sorry, vihara, taking yourself away separately, and ahara, something you take in, or
I
take
think
towards
also
yourself.
there's another connotation as well. Hara, not only to take away, but also to take completely away cleanly, to destroy stuff. That's why Hara. Hara is also the name of the god of destroyer, Shiva, as well. I think this is the root as well. Yeah.
Is that, I didn't know that one. So it's
Yeah.
another name for Shiva under the aspect of the god of
Yeah,
destruction.
Har Mahadev. They say Har Mahadev. This is the chant
Oh.
that goes. Yeah.
So the god
And
who
here is the root of
removes,
the
who
word. Har
takes
is to
away, to
take away. He
destroys.
destroys. He's the destroyer.
That's I didn't know that. That's interesting. Thanks for that, Ram. Oh. So the hara, by the way, could be a softened form of the root bri. You sometimes find that you get parallel roots. So an aspirated vowel, aspirated consonant, sorry, bri, just finishes up as a h, but it's effectively the same root. And bri and hri have roughly the same kind of meaning. Bri meaning to carry or to take. The root bri, we get bharati, and the English word bear and burden, meaning to carry. So the bri root softened to hri. So the Sanskrit root hri is actually cognate with our English word to bear. And also, of course, with the Greek, ferro meaning to carry, and ferre in Latin as well. Ferro, in both Greek and Latin, ferro means to carry. If you infer something, you are carrying it into what somebody. If you infer something into what somebody says, you are literally carrying it in. And if you defer, like you defer an event, you are kind of pushing it away. So defer and vihara are etymologically the same, pushing something away, taking it away.
Sorry, James. Sorry, no. Oh, wait.
Okay, Simon, you go on, and then we'll hear Duncan.
Yes, sorry. Presumably also transfer, but it occurred to me, is it also the root of the word ferry, a vehicle that takes something?
It probably is, actually, yes. Ferrying across the river. Yeah, it's very, very likely, as I haven't actually checked it, but transfer certainly to carry across.
Sorry, Duncan, that was a trivial point. Carry on.
No, mine's even more trivial. It's just my own lack of concentration. Sorry, could you just repeat again, James? Hara, the translation of hara, Hara.
Okay,
So
so
we go vihara and ahara.
okay, right. So the root is hri,
Yep.
meaning the most primitive meaning is to take or to carry. It is probably originally the same root as bri. So they are, you very often find that you get extended roots and softened roots and one root so closely associated with another that go back a few centuries, pre-Vedic, and they were probably the same word. They just become differentiated. So basically it means to take. So it makes a verbal noun, hara, meaning taking, and as Ram has just been explaining to us, it's the name of the one of the names of Shiva, the Hindu Trinity Shiva, in the aspect of the destroyer god, the taker away, who sweeps things away and leaves a barren waste of destruction. But in the more ordinary meaning, just means taking. So when with the prefix suhri, verbal noun hara, put this prefix "a" in front of it, which is either towards or just gives a dynamic sense. So the ahara, the intake, literally, your intake. And that has come to mean food, that which you take into your body to nourish your body. And then by extension, it's the intake into your mind and the things that you listen to and watch, the conversations that you have is all a form of ahara. And the vihara with our separative vi, meaning away, just to where you take yourself away to your separate private place, where you remove yourself from the hustle and bustle of ordinary life, you take yourself away.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you.
Mm. There are quite a few routes that go in pairs, where you have one route maybe, for example, an extended form. Let's take the root e, meaning to go. And that root, exactly that same appears. The Latin ire, meaning to go. So it's the root of the word is the e, the same e. And for example, we have it ex ire, to go out, third person singular, exit. So the e in exit is exactly the same as our Sanskrit root e, meaning to go x out, it goes. Similarly, transit, transit, trans across, and it goes. Incidentally, the word trans, across, the Sanskrit root tri, meaning to cross it. This is the one that makes the verbal noun tara. Now, avatara, ava down, tara crossing. So the avatar is a being from a higher realm that crosses down into the human realm, which is a very common notion in Hinduism, for example. You get the higher human beings. They're actually avatars. They're avatars. They cross down from from a higher realm, or it can be the gods taking human form. For example, the Buddha. You might be able to help me on this one, Ram, that certainly among many Hindus, the Buddha is regarded as an avatara of one of the Hindu gods.
Yeah, but I think it's inclusionism. They just wanted it that way. There isn't any correlation whatsoever.
Yeah, I think that they thought
Unfair.
that the Buddha was such a wonderful thing, we need to incorporate
Yeah,
him
exactly. Pretty much
into our
like that.
Hindu pattern, which is fine, which is fine. One of the
It is like
glorious things.
10th incarnation or something like that, but that's utter nonsense.
So there we are, avatara. In English, incidentally, this meaning to cross, it gives us our English word through, because you are crossing from one side to the other side of something. So the tri, to cross, tar, and our English word through are from that same root. So through and trans are from the same root. Incidentally, from tri meaning across, or to cross something, you get the Sanskrit Tiryancha, which also comes into Pali. Tiryancha means a crossing, also going across. In the Karanya Metta Adhudanta Tiryancha, Tiryan, crossing. So it means above, below, and across, meaning on the same level as you. So Tiryan, Tri, avatar, through, and trans are all from the basic root Tri, meaning to cross, meaning to cross from one side to another, as in crossing a river, or avatar, to cross down from a divine realm to the human realm, for example.
Oh, there's something else actually. Sorry for interrupting, by the way.
No, not at all.
Yeah, this avatar, I was just thinking of because star means stars. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's a purely a coincidental similarity there.
Okay.
Mm.
Okay. Because I thought it's perhaps that's what's making people when you said crossover. In olden days, they were probably looking at stars to go from one place to another when navigating and stuff like that.
That's an interesting point. That
Yeah.
is an interesting point.
And as well, on a more lighter note, Avatara, when you said they are moving from one cosmic realm to another world or whatnot to take an incarnation or whatnot, if they didn't do that, if they remained so, then the Ava part goes away. Then they're just stars in the sky, maybe. Who knows?
Interestingly, as we were mentioning earlier, Ram, although there's no, as far as I know, there is no etymological justification to connect the root tri in Tara with the word Tara meaning a star. Nevertheless, this may be one of those cases where in the popular conception of the language, the meaning, those two words were associated. And if they were associated in the way that the speakers of centuries or millennia ago understood it, then, as I've said, it's a valid subject for us to be aware of, that was how it was interpreted. In fact, the word tara, meaning a star, in an earlier form of the language, and also in Proto-European, it had an S in front of it. And this is one of those cases where the S got dropped even by Vedic times. So what we used Tara, Sanskrit Tara, was Astara. So of course it's remained virtually unchanged in English. In Latin, the R becomes a L. So that's why we get the Latin word stella, meaning a star. So it's related to our word star, but the S did disappear. Just as we were discussing earlier, the more ancient form spash became pash. It just dropped the s. This is one of those words. So, Simon.
Yeah, 2 points really. One of them is with the, as in the Metta Sutta, the Tiriyancha. Is that also the same as Tirachana for animal? Like something.
It is, yeah. The idea is that because the Tirachana, the idea is that we walk with our spines upright, which distinguishes us from animals who walk with horizontal spines. Therefore, it's described as walking crosswise, which is the meaning of Tirachana. But so you're right about that.
It's the chana bit then, because the I've also heard it explained in terms of animals not having the karmic capability to move up or down between realms. They just go horizontally from animal life to animal life.
That's yeah. I suspect that it was originally. I only suspect this, that it was originally a physical meaning, that we walk, with spines upright. Vertebrate animals walk with spines horizontal, crosswise. The meaning you've given, that an animal cannot move up or down, is probably later. By analogy, was only able to move across. But I don't actually know that. It's just I suspect. As for the form of where does the chana come from? I used to know. I can't remember. I've made a note to check that one. So I'll check that and come back to you next time.
The other point was following Ram about the stars. With stara, is there anything to do with sta, as in standing or staying? I'm just thinking in terms of navigation, whereas the planets move around and wander, the stars relative to one another are absolutely fixed and they stay in the same place all the time.
So the stara, as it were, the stable heavenly bodies, as opposed to the ones that we can see moving. That's an interesting idea. That I wonder if it was. We come slightly up against the problem that standing, the root star in Vedic is the aspirated ta. There's star, which gives us, for example, sthana. So sthana originally meant a standing, and by extension, a place. And that is where that same word came into Persian as the suffix stan. Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, all Pakistan's is from that same root. But if we want, whether we can relate star to stara and star, it's an interesting. I tend to think not. But again, I'll see what I can find out about that. But for example, in Persian, the word for a star is sitare, clearly cognate with very closely cognate with the older Vedic or pre-Vedic form stara. Whereas the Persian word for to stand, written in Roman characters, istadan, so it's the ista. So they're very distinctly different in Persian, and these words have remained the same since an older Persian. So the fact that they are so different in Persian tends to suggest that they are not of the same origin. but it's worth looking into. And as I said, it may be that in the popular conception, that was the meaning of sitara. Stara. Save that. I'm kind of like a lawyer advising a client out of all the things possibly pro. It might be this, might be that. Once we'd got to the stage of Vedic and Sanskrit, and the same applies in right up to modern Hindi, the Indians, or the speakers of the northern Indian languages, did not confuse between the aspirates and the non-aspirates. So for the, I mean, Ram will know this well, that for the speaker, an Indian speaker, the difference between ta and ta, they're just two completely different sounds. As if the difference between da and da are two completely different sounds. We have in the Karanyametta Sutta the Purisadhamma Sarati. Purisadhamma, Dhamma here, meaning from the root dham, meaning to tame. So Dhamma means, like a bronco, an untamed horse, something it requires to be tamed. So the Buddha is the Purisadhamma Sarati, just with a D. Now, I've seen some Westerners, even people in our Manchester Sangha here, confusing Dhamma with Dhamma. But no, although we say, oh, there's only a difference of one H, to the Indian speaker, these are two totally different sounds, and the native Indian speaker just cannot confuse these sounds. So that's another factor that somewhat is against your theory, Simon, because the ta in sta is an aspirated, whereas sitara and tara is non-aspirated. You would tend not to get a mental confusion between the two if you were a native speaker of a northern Indian language.
Well, I think with that lawyerly advice, I will settle out of court.
Settle out of court. Okay, right. So, one other thing, by the way, we were talking about, we've only got a few minutes left, I'll just mention this one just for fun, really. We were talking about viveka, I didn't get so it's from the root vich, meaning to, the original meaning of the root vich was just to separate things. And it was used in an agricultural sense also of winnowing, where the winnowing was where you separated the grain from the chaff. That's the idea of the separating there. So the vich make a verbal noun veka. So viveka means separating one thing from another. So viveka. And you see it used in both senses in Pali already, that viviceva, viviceva akusalehi dhamehi, separating himself from injurious factors. We talk about monks going into the forest to meditate. He takes himself into a state of viveka, a bit like vihara. He separates himself from worldly distractions and sits to meditate. That's the original physical meaning of viveka. But then it has its kind of mental, spiritual meaning of viveka, meaning to be able to discriminate the true from the false. And we have the well-known Indian teacher Vivekananda. So that's the Viveka Ananda. the person who took joy in viveka, that's discrimination, but in the valid spiritual sense, meaning to be able to distinguish the true and the false, the good from the evil. Simon.
How do we know that? How do we know that Vivekananda wasn't about the joy of separating from the impure? I mean, I've always thought of Viveka as being separating from a particular state, isolating oneself. Either, I think isn't there a sutta or something that looks like Kaya Viveka, where you physically separate your body from,
yeah,
you go in seclusion. And then there's the kind of, like the monastery, Chitta Viveka. And
yeah.
Interestingly, at the monastery, when I first started going there, they said it was about separating the mind from the impure or from mental contact. And then they started talking about, as you've been, judgment, mental judgment, knowing what. Well, I'm just wondering what support there is for this second sense of judgment at all, that Vivekananda could be just the blissful separation from the world or from impurity.
Actually, Simon, you have led me to pass adverse judgment against myself for maybe speaking too hastily. So on the general meanings of viveka, they can mean the physical separation, and then the being able to judge one thing from another, separate good from evil. That is clear enough in the scriptures. But Vivekananda, you're quite right, it could also be, I don't know how he interpreted it himself, but it could also mean, yes, the joy in living separately, basically the joy of wandering off into the forest or into a private kuti. So the answer is yes. You're right. It could have had that.
In terms of the canon, it could mean either, couldn't it? It could mean either of those two meanings.
Oh yes, I mean in the Pali canon, we frequently see both meanings.
I'm just wondering what the context is that gives us the second meaning. That the only context, I suppose what I'm saying is, with my limited knowledge of the canon, I've only ever interpreted it in terms of the first meaning, separating from a particular mental state or a thing, as opposed to the mental activity of knowing one thing from another. And it's that lack of context on my part. I've not.
Yeah. Okay. I'm speaking very largely here from kind of remembered things and hunches without actually having refined and honed my knowledge here. So that this is even some more homework you've given me to do, Simon, which I'm always grateful. Incidentally, this vich, the idea of the meaning of separating. In Latin, by the way, the vic is two entirely separate roots. One is the vic as in Victoria, and the other is the vic which we find in the word victim. So the victim, the sacrificial victim, was actually originally under the ancient Roman sacrifices. The victim was the animal that was kept separate and pure in order to be offered as a sacrifice to the gods. So the vic of victim is, in that context, the same as the viveka word. So it was kept separate for sacrificial purposes. Also, the idea of as a separate and different in shamanistic knowledge. I mean, I don't know how well supported this is. I believe so, but I'll double check. But our word witch come the idea of you're separate from others. You have a separate, special kind of ability or knowledge. I'll have to double check one, but I believe that to be the case.
Yeah, The one story that I remember for the Viveka example is from some poet. I can't remember the name. It was him who coined this comparison, where it's about the bird swan. When you hand it milk and water mixed in a bowl, it has this capability to consume only the milk from the bowl and leave the water alone. Uh, and such is the quality of Viveka, where you have the ability to sieve the things, separate out, and then have the discriminatory ability to. I can't quite remember well the story behind it, but somehow this simile or this comparison is attached with the word Viveka back from the.
Right. Okay,
Yeah.
so it's the ability then to extract the pure essence of something out of it and leave the less valuable stuff behind. Yeah, that certainly makes sense. So you can do it physically with just extracting the pure milk from water as the swan, or you can do it mentally, distinguishing between true and false, good and evil, and so on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. So this has consisted of some very interesting digressions, steppings away, and rabbit holes. So what we'll do then, we'll come to 9:20. So we'll should we chant the blessing and go our ways. That's a bit of water. Bhavatu sabba mangalang rakhantu sabba devata sabba buddhanubhavena sada sutti bhavantu te. Bhavatu sabba mangalang rakhantu sabba devata sabba dhammanubhavena sada sutti bhavantu te. Bhavatu sabba mangalang rakhantu sabba devata sabba sanghanu bhavena sada sutti bhavantu te. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay. Okay, see you next time. I hope I'll be on again on Tuesday. See some of you then. Okay. Good to see you, Jill.
Thanks a lot, Simon. Thank you, James. See everyone.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank you all for joining me. Thanks. Bye. Bye.